What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Salty Runback, here to be your weekly intake of North American Developmental League of Legends. We have gone through the first week of the CLOL 2025 bracket with just a couple more best of fives left to go. Those are going to be streamed over on Salty Runback, by the way. One of them already is going to have been done by the time this comes out, but make sure to watch all that college League of Legends action. We're going to talk all about it, as well as the NACL, which is nearing that halfway point of the regular season where we're starting to figure out our contenders and also try to wonder which teams could be headed down towards that promotion tournament. My name is Grapes, joined alongside Hawk. Hawk, how are you doing today?
Grapes, I'm doing all right. It's my Saturday, if you will. Had a long week of work. Slept in this morning. Well, I always sleep in because I work nights, but I slept in more this morning, and it was beautiful. And CLOL was so much fun to follow this weekend. I got to watch a good majority of the games because like most of them were generally wrapping up by the time I went to work in the evenings. And man, oh man, I know we were not very happy about the 16 best of fives at once thing, but it was an extremely fun weekend of games to follow with a whole hell of a lot that went on.
Yeah, the shotgun start had its ups and downs. I think it would have been cooler to have them spread out throughout the day, but there's some beauty in like that OQ style of having all these games happen at the same time. I didn't get the chance to watch much of round one. I kind of had it on a side. I had like this giant multi-GG on like a side monitor while I was casting Northwood versus UCI, which ended up being a turbo banger. So missed out on some of that, but was able to catch up on some tape throughout the rest of the day. And yeah, CLOL is a lot of fun. If you're not following it already and you're watching our show, first of all, it doesn't make much sense, but make sure you do for this next week, as we have narrowed things down to the top 16. That just means the level of competition, the stakes are going to continue to get higher and higher. And if you want to know exactly where and when you can find all this and even more surrounding the developmental landscape, you can follow us on all of our social media platforms. Follow us on our Twitch channel, where tomorrow, as you see this episode at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, we'll be streaming the last matchup, the last best of five in the lower bracket of round 2 of the lower bracket between UHSP and UCI. Of course, that will set things up for our full top 16 and our Patreon as well, where we'll continue to be uploading bonus content like CLOL Office Hours. We'll get another one of those out after this first round has concluded.
Yeah. Also, I mean, be sure as well to check out our social media, because I think we have another stream cooked up for Thursday in addition, as we kind of get into top 16. So, maybe won't spoil who that's between or something, but we do have a top 16 stream coming on Thursday for you also. Salty Runback streams are alive and well, and if you want to be in the one place that you can follow CLOL better than anywhere else and talk to a ton of other like-minded fans that were losing their mind over some of the upsets that happened this weekend, join the Salty Runback Discord, link in the description. But, Grapes, I think it's headline time.
It is headline time. We're going to start off, speaking of our Patreon a little bit earlier, with our Patreon question. And this comes from Seanatonin, who asks, rank your top 3 states from the Midwest. Or he said...
He said rank them all Midwest in order.
States. There's too many of them. So we're
but
just
then I feel like we'd have
3.
an argument with people about like what are actually Midwestern states. So yeah, top 3 is probably
only
safer.
Definitive Midwest states here.
Hawk.
Let's
I offended my girlfriend who is from Oklahoma because I said Oklahoma's in the Midwest, and she was like, "It is not." And I was like, "I'm not gonna." Yeah,
it's in the middle of the map. We're just coastal elitists.
Great. Wait. I want to hear your take now, because then I'm gonna show her this episode.
No, it's the South, I think, pretty definitively. But I wouldn't call that Midwest. I would call some of these other states the Midwest. And hey, a lot of Midwest states competing in CLOL, actually, as that's our little connection here to the Space Hawk. What do you got for us here?
Oh yeah. Okay. So top 3 Midwestern states. Fuck it hell. I have only been to one state in the entire Midwest. I've never been to like Illinois or Michigan. Okay. I'm gonna go bottom to, or like top to bottom. Number 1 is gonna be Minnesota. That's the one I've been to. Minneapolis, very beautiful city. Also home to Steve Kangas and Quacks. So
True.
Shout out Minnesota. Number 2 is that was number 1. Number 2 is going to be Michigan. Seems pretty chill, I think. It's like Yeah. And then number 3 is Illinois.
You can tell we're really well versed
Yeah.
about Midwestern geography in the United
Yeah, yeah,
States.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because
Um,
so Michigan, home to Charlie Sears and Enrique Demore, and also, I don't know. Like, I don't hate the Lions. Like, I don't like the Lions, but I don't hate the Lions. They're like, all right, the Lions are the Lions, and it seems like I've met nice people from Michigan. And then Illinois gets it because I feel like I would like to go to Chicago at some point. I just haven't been. So that's my list.
I think I've driven through it once. It was nice.
Hell yeah.
Got to have one of those like one of those like famous like fancy hot dogs that they have.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay, here's my list. Number 1, Michigan. Go Blue. Got a lot of family that went to the U of M. Was maybe gonna go there. Ended up going to school up in Boston instead. Number 2, Ohio, because that is one of the other.
That
states
is
that I've actually
contentious
visited.
as hell to call Ohio
little-
Midwest.
It's a little controversial. Wait,
Oh.
really? Is that Midwest? Is it not Midwest? What
I
is
think
it?
Ohio is like definitively Rust Belt,
Oh,
like Great Lakes,
that-
not Midwest.
are we not counting that?
If Ohio counts,
I didn't realize I
Ohio.
was sparking some controversy.
If Ohio counts, Ohio's my number 2. So
Okay,
Ohio's my 1.5 if it counts. I didn't think Ohio was Midwest.
I kind of, let
It's
us know in
pretty
the
far
comments.
east. Yeah,
it is pretty far east. But that's why I've been to it recently. So that was my number 2.
Yeah,
I visited
okay.
Cleveland like 4 or 5 years ago for like a couple nights. Went to a Guardians game. It was pretty fun.
Fuck yeah.
And number 3, I think I'll give it to Minnesota as well. I have a lot of friends outside of esports too that are actually from there. They all seem to love it. And that's another place I want to go to someday, Minneapolis. So
It is a nice city.
I think those are my top 3.
Thank you, Sean, for the really good Patreon headline.
Yeah,
This is what it's all
we want
about.
the
Yeah.
Patreon for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not just the League of Legends questions. You can hear our personal takes about like the most random shit as well.
So now that we've wasted the first 7.5 minutes of this episode, let's get into the real headlines.
Let's start
here.
talking about what you actually clicked this episode for, which is to talk about League of Legends.
Yeah.
Starting with the NACL, we're gonna kick things off there as Week 4 just concluded. All 6 of our series went just 2 games. We did not get any deciders here this week, and all the games were won by the 4 teams that are currently sitting at the top 4 in the standings. That's DarkZero Dragonsteel, Luminosity Gaming, Near Airport, and CCG, who went on a pretty big run. They did the 2-0 that we were talking about. They beat Blue Water, they beat Winthrop, and now are definitively at 4th place in the standings with a 7-4 game record. And that leaves 6 teams kind of towards the bottom here. Now, I think we all are kind of in agreement that Pulsar likely headed to that promotion tournament. But out of the other 5 teams here, Hawk, is there anybody else that you would deem either safe for playoffs or safe from the promotion tournament?
Yeah, dude, I'm feeling pretty good. I feel like I've been not hitting with like my hot takes recently. So CCG actually breaking away as the 4th place has been nice to watch. Good week from them. Dude, Aljun making a case for rookie display right now.
Yeah. Hey, we were doubters early on.
I owe you an
He's proving us
apology. I was
wrong.
not familiar with your game. Yeah. Clearly, Aljun's been smurfing. That's awesome. Yeah, this is a really interesting question, right? Because then we just have like 6 other teams. As far as who is safe, let's start with that part of the question, and then I kind of have some other stuff I want to talk about. I think the only things that I can feel pretty confident in is I feel reasonably confident that Conviction will be going to playoffs, meaning they'll finish top 6. And then obviously I feel reasonably confident that Pulse is going to be last. So they're going to go to promotion relegation. Out of the other 4 teams, I feel like it becomes an interesting conversation of like who goes to 9th place through what is that, 5th place or 6th place?
5th place, yeah, or 6th place now.
Yeah, so it's like 6 through 9, I think, is really where the conversation for me is. And even Conviction, like they could end up like 7th. I feel reasonably confident Conviction is going to playoffs, reasonably confident Pulse is going to relegation. I also don't think Blue Water is going to relegation. I just don't know. Like I could see them coming in 8th or something at this point. I think that's my take so far.
Blue Water has a tough schedule actually ahead of them. They dropped some games, like of course the CCG. I think they also lost to Winthrop early in the year. Those are the matches that they probably would have wanted to have if they wanted to fully lock up a playoff spot, but they didn't have that. And so now the remaining schedule is Conviction, who they have to beat probably, or probably is on their schedule as a team that they have to beat to make playoffs. Supernova, but then after that it goes Near Airport, Dragonsteel, and then Apex Mission Impossible at the end. So they play 2 of the 3 kind of top tier contenders still. And so there's 3 games that are winnable for them, but I wouldn't say any of them are necessarily a guarantee, especially with how we've seen AMI even look competitive against a team like Near Airport, even though it was a 2-0.
I actually really do think this Blue Outer Conviction series is an important one. I think Conviction's favored, but I think whoever wins, pretty much locks up a playoff spot. Like, I don't, like, mathematically we're not there yet, but just based on expectations, I think winner of that is, like, absolutely getting into playoffs. And obviously they both still have other roads, even if they lose. But I do think that one's going to be an important one for that reason. Grapes, the take I also want to come in with is I think right now Winthrop is in massive danger of dropping down to ninth place and relegating for the sole reason that Supernova has yet to play Polestar yet. So even though they've looked fucking terrible, they're probably going to still get 2 wins. And Winthrop is probably going to need to win head-to-head against them to avoid relegation.
Yeah.
Which I know Supernova has not looked good, but they've still fathered Winthrop throughout the year for the most part. So I'm not confident that that Winthrop has the sauce to pull that off.
Depending on how that Supernova Blue Otter game goes, that matchup against Winthrop could decide who goes to the promotion tournament.
And if Supernova beats Blue Otter, I think Winthrop is like super fucked.
If Supernova beat Blue Otter, yeah,
or maybe Blue Otter's fucked.
It's gonna be interesting to see. I think right now my betting odds for who finishes 9th probably would be Winthrop or maybe either them or AMI. But I think AMI have actually had better looks as of late, and Winthrop has kind of been on a bit of a downward slide. They lost to CCG. They had a tough loss in CLOL as well, as maybe we'll get into in a little bit. But
yeah,
Conviction should be a tough opponent for them. The Supernova one is going to be crucial, and they play Near Airport their last game. They actually have some of the most games played. They've already had 5, so they only have a few left in their season, and so I think I agree with you that Conviction is kind of the safest. I think that Polestar is the most doomed. And then, honestly, I think it's going to come down to our collegiate programs here between Winthrop and Supernova to see who gets that 9th spot. Yeah,
I'm actually looking at the schedule right now. Man, Conviction has some like must-win games this week. Like they have Winthrop and Blue Otter on the schedule. If they 2-0, it's the exact same situation CCG was just in. If they 2-0 this week, like Conviction is chilling. And I think they are better than both those teams. So, like, I would love to see it happen. If it doesn't, it gets more interesting. I completely agree. I think Winthrop is in the biggest danger of being 9th place right now, purely because they lost to AMI. Also, I'm feeling very vindicated for the hype that I gave AMI coming in. A lot of people were like, oh, it's just because Hawk's the tier 3 guy. I'm like, no, I think this team, like, actually has some good ball. Yes, individual talent isn't always there for them, but I think as a team, they've looked really good, and they have plenty of room to grow, and I think we've really gotten to see that. They are already sitting on 2 wins for the season, and, I mean, even though that might not be enough to save them, the head-to-head over Winthrop, and I think better game score, if I'm not mistaken, is pretty huge. So
Winthrop have the better game score by a game.
Oh, they do. Okay. So AMI, I guess, is still kind of in danger as well. But I think
the more that I look at it as well, actually, AMI have the hardest schedule left out of any of these remaining.
Yeah, because they've not played any of the big boys.
They have Luminosity, then Dragonsteel, then CCG, and then Blue Otter to wrap things up. So there's a chance that Blue Otter AMI series becomes very important at the end of the season. There's a world that Conviction CCG series becomes important at the end of the season. Those are the last 2 matchups on the last day of the regular season. That could determine either who makes it to the promotion tournament or who's like finishing top 4, which could get them an advantage in playoffs. So
that actually is interesting. Yeah, I still think Winthrop's in danger though, because they've just not been playing well. Because I could also see a world where I could see a world where Winthrop loses out and then AMI just needs to pick up a win somewhere. I mean, we'll see what happens. Obviously, AMI also in a difficult position. I feel like Supernova is definitely next on the chopping block, and then, like I said, Blue Otter probably the safest out of those 4, but like it still could get spicy if they skid. I also think Blue Otter has not looked very good so far this year.
The fact that a lot of them still have to play a lot of games against each other means that the last 3 weeks of the regular season definitely going to be entertaining to watch. As teams are going to jump up and down like crazy. As again, single round robin means that there's a lot of variance in terms of how things can be placed. So we'll make sure to continue to follow that. I think a more NACL focused part 2 coming up in our midweek episode. Might be bringing back an old favorite. We'll double check with you on that before we fully announce it. But let's move on to our next headline here, which is about our top tier contender in DarkZero Dragonsteel. They made quick work of Supernova, who you predicted as being the CLOL finals rematch, by the way. But it did not look like a very close series there, as DarkZero ended up taking care of business. And then in the post-game interview, Zyko, my boy Zyko, Ryan, I think he accidentally leaked that the Light team for DarkZero Dragonsteel, the former iteration of another team in this NACL with Tenacity, Kryra, Toasty, Spawn, and Cryogen, there we're going to be playing in our first game of the week, I should say, against Near Airport in week 5. Now, obviously, these guys getting an opportunity on the NACL stage is going to be great, especially against one of the most popular teams in the league, Hawk. Are DarkZero Dragonsteel, with this new roster they're going to be rolling out, still the favorites against Near Airport?
It's such an interesting question. First of all, Grapes, how does this affect our over/under 1.5 losses on the series for DarkZero that we had like 2 weeks
a little
ago?
bit. Yeah.
Like, does it count?
I think so, but also we made that question before the
Right.
roster was announced. So
that's what I mean. Yeah.
it kind of is what it is. I think also shout out to the Maryville boys, as they're going to be heading down to the NACL LAN in Orlando, which I think is why the Light boys are going to be playing for NA against NA.
Which, I mean, it's really cool that the Light guys are going to be picking up some stage time. Yeah, I just think that's funny. Like, maybe it counts if Maryville, or literally not Maryville, if DarkZero Light or even wins the series. If they win the series, our prediction still goes. If they lose, it was before we knew about this roster swap, so sorry guys. Like that FanDuel's giving us our money back for that one.
Exactly.
But this is gonna be a really interesting match. I'm going to say I do not think DarkZero Light are the favorites, purely because, and this is what's going to make the match so fucking interesting. I actually don't know who's casting this one. I'm really excited for them, whoever it is, because it's Kryra Toasty against Speaka Pobelter, who have been the two biggest carries on Near Airport by quite a bit, I think, so far this season. Not that others haven't had their moments, but I think Speaka and Pobelter have kind of been like those guys, the mid jungle for NA, and it's the two sophomores on this DarkZero team that are going up against them. The two players that I think most people are the most excited about on this team. So like, this is going to be fucking awesome, but I do think like I favor the Speaka Pobelter side of this matchup, at least like on paper, right? Just because it's Speaka and Pobelter, and that I'm actually really curious to see if Kryra and Toasty can go toe to toe with them, because I think they are talented enough too. I'm just like, I'm not putting my money on it. You know what I mean?
They did go toe-to-toe with them. Well, it wasn't Pobelter, but it was with Jensen in
That's
the
true.
first scrim set that Polestar saw.
But that was
that
Near
roster was
Airport's
announced.
better than then. But I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, that is fair. And also, I don't know how much the DarkZero Light team has been scrimming. We'll see how much the practice has been paying off for them particularly. But it's going to be really fun to see. I think it's going to be a cool litmus test here for Near Airport. Obviously, we saw their first ever scrim set was against Supernova, and we just saw them demolish them 2-0. If they look really good against this DarkZero Light team that 4-1 them in scrims, they are definitely proving to continue to impress at the highest of levels. So the mid jungle is interesting. I'm just so glad we get to see Toasty and Kryra play in our league again. Those guys are such fun players.
I mean, what a boost it would be to their stock if they come in for one series and gap Speaka and Pobelter, dude. Like, how fucking hype would that be?
I think I'm still giving the edge slightly to Near Airport. But again, I love that DarkZero are able to do this, especially as we've mentioned before, that some of their players are probably getting looked at here for tier 1 spots. I know that DSG just fell to 0-6. I'm sure they're not resting on their they're probably not resting on their laurels too much in terms of what to expect, considering that they could be playing for their spot at the end of the year. So good for DarkZero to pick up that roster, and good to see them get some experience against one of the most hyped up matchups of the season.
Yeah, I'm beyond excited that we get to see this team play, man. And it's cool too. Again, we kind of joked like, oh, maybe they'll sub in DarkZero Light against like AMI. It's cool that they get Near Airport, and I mean, I think DarkZero is already mathematically in playoffs. If I'm not, they're 5-0, right? I don't think they can drop out of playoffs, so like this match doesn't actually matter for anything other than like seeding. But I don't think DarkZero cares too much because, dude, even if if they somehow drop to like the third seed, like they're playing to win. They're playing to win. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I think this is awesome. I think it's gonna be a great match. Again, like this is not to disrespect like Tenacity and Spawn and Cryogen. It's just like I absolutely think the mid jungle narrative is like where everyone's eyes should be for the series. Cryotoasty against Biko Pobelter. It is going to be a fucking treat. And I totally agree with you. I think there's just like way more questions surrounding DarkZero Light, which is why it's fair to say they're not the favorites. But at the very least, we know that they have a lot of talent, and so it wouldn't surprise me to see a competitive series.
Yeah, so make sure to tune into that one. That'll be happening on Wednesday, and then hey, after that you can go check out some CLOL with UCI taking on UHSP over on Salty Runback NA. Let's move on to our next headline as we talk about CLOL and the entirety of the first and second rounds of the bracket. 22 so far series have been played. We're going to have another one tonight with Grandview taking on Nova, and then one on Wednesday, as we said, UCI against UHSP, both for spots in the top 16. But now we have cut our Field Hawk in half after just 1 week of games. I want you to pick one team that excited you and maybe impressed you this week, and then one team that disappointed you.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I mean, it's so hard to only pick one. I mean, I've got to go for the biggest narrative everyone's talking about in CLOL right now. University of Minnesota, a club team from a Power 5 school, is in top 16 after a colossal upset over Converse in 4 games. Enon and Porty just smoked the Devon and Phantom Star pack so fucking hard 4 straight games in a row. And Minnesota is now a top 16 team in the country. Their reward, of course, is playing against Winthrop this coming week. But, I mean, that has to be the excitement, man. I mean, this is so cool. One of the larger upsets we've seen already in CLOL. And I'm just going to put this out there. Like, yes, they are heavy underdogs against Winthrop. Make no mistake, who just 3-0'd South Florida. But Minnesota has the opportunity here to pull off the single largest upset in the history of College League of Legends if they manage to somehow beat Winthrop and make top 12. So, like, let's fucking go Minnesota. I'm so hyped for this team. They're really entertaining. I love their brand of league, dude. Enon and Porty just play like so aggro 2v2, like we're going to hands check you the whole lane. Like Zutter's all over the place with all kinds of different champions, like super heavy gank heavy play style. Feels like Minnesota can carry through any role, by the way. I know I'm specifically talking about like some of their players, but
yeah, don't forget about What the Sigma Uwu, who got a pentakill in this series.
No, exactly. Like dude, everyone's had their moments to pop off. It feels like a full team effort. They got a great name, What the Sigma Uwu in the top lane. Like, dude, this team is hype as fuck. Let's go Minnesota.
They did it. That's the only team currently outside of the top 16 that is in the top 16 going forward. Obviously, that could change depending on how Nova and UHSP do in their lower bracket matchups, which have not completed yet as we are recording this episode. But I didn't pick Minnesota to win their first round game against Carleton.
No, neither did I.
They won that one. It was I think near reverse sweep for Carleton.
The first two series of CLOL were near reverse sweeps, by the way, because they played earlier, remember? Yeah, which I find so funny.
And then the San Jose State one, yeah. Oh man, that was a fun series too. I mean, shout out to the Spartans. We're not gonna probably talk about them too much, but taking a game off of Weber, I think Weber stealing away that Urgot from Evan Lai actually ended up being a big win for Jex. But yeah, Spartans making it to top 24 after participating in the CLOL battle in the bubble. Very cool. Minnesota, yeah, they did it. I think, as you said, everybody performing well. Zutter had a great series as well. On the flip side, disappointment for Converse. You know, they end their CLOL season after being a projected top 16 team by almost everybody, with a 1-6 total record in games. Obviously, 3 of those losses were to UST, but they just never really looked fully together as a 5-man unit against this Minnesota team that they should have beaten, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. And again, I want to give a lot of credit to Minnesota because I think a lot of us knew that the strongest piece of Converse was their bottom lane, and a lot of us thought that would just be enough to elevate them over like the not top teams, right? And which is why they were the 14 seed coming into the event. But dude, like Devin and Phantom not only got neutralized by Enon and Porty, they were kind of losing. And I think that was something not a lot of people expected. And Minnesota completely removed like the most important piece of the puzzle for that Converse team, and definitely the Valkyries were not able to recover. So I want to give like a lot of credit to Minnesota for that. You know, I like obviously commiserations to Converse as well, but definitely not the season they wanted to have. However, I think Minnesota really came in and they showed what they're capable of. And so yeah, I mean, but Converse, like on the flip side, they have to be that biggest disappointment, right? Definitely bowing out. Neither of us had them on our bingo card of teams to 0-2 out. In fact, one of the teams that Grapes had on his bingo card, Western, in fact, did not 0-2 out. They're 1-0. They took out maybe another one of those disappointments in the lower bracket. Winthrop 3-1 in the first round after the Mustangs had announced that they're not. This is going to be the last series that they play.
Now, which is not going to be the case.
Right. Credit to them, by the way, who they have said they've brought it around and they're like, okay, we're going to try to reschedule. We're going to try to keep going. Like, good job, Western. I'm really happy to see that because, come on, guys. Like, let's.
What a story would be, right?
Yeah. Just do it right. Do it all the way through. And I'm proud of them for trying to honor that commitment. But Winthrop, I mean, definitely a series that I think they were supposed to win. And obviously they got their vengeance over South Florida the following day, but in the lower bracket,
I didn't get to catch too much of this Western Winthrop series, but every time I glanced over, it was like Winthrop just were in weird positions where they just extended too far forward, or
dude, they just were
fighting
perma-fighting. They were perma-fighting the whole series.
They were fighting things they shouldn't have been fighting, and Western kind of are a team that does that as well, and they did that throughout all the Eastern Conference season, maybe to a detriment in their 3-0 loss to St. Clair. But this is a big win for them, and maybe even more indicative of like the struggles that Winthrop are facing over the past couple of weeks. Now they did respond nicely with a 3-0 over at USF, and that's where you'll keep a little bit of a light in for them. But all of a sudden, Western, like they have some shooters on their team. Obviously, Dr. Calculus I think could have a good matchup against Porsche against UST. The bot lane can maybe match up. I know Julian is like has had his ups and downs, but going up against Array is going to be a tough task. Big upset there. And the last shout out I want to give before we move on to our next headline is to ISU. Remember that series against Grandview was their like series that we all kind of predicted was going to be close, even though we thought that ISU was a really good team. They elevated beyond that. Fatachan is what his name actually is.
I learned it watching the video that ISU put out.
Really popped off in the series. Music as well, ending 24-2 across all 3 games combined. Really not making Grandview have any sort of a chance in any of the games, really. And so all of a sudden their matchup against Ole Miss is going to be very exciting as well. And yeah, shout out to the Redbirds because they looked really good.
Fatachan making me look a little silly for saying ISU was the music show. So shout out Fatachan for a great week, and I am expecting that to continue. I think I disrespected his game / just ISU's game in general a little bit. I still stand by predicting Grandview for fun, but
yeah, you always gotta have an upset in there.
That has ruined my bracket. We'll talk about that later. One more shout out as well. University of Toronto, Mississauga. I think not necessarily an unexpected 3-0 over Cal, but like this team looks really good. They're the second team in the calendar year of 2025 to take a game off of Maryville University after the Redbirds, actually. So that is a very elite club that all of a sudden a team that like most people expected to be pretty solidly middle of the pack has now gotten for themselves. And I'm actually very afraid if I'm UCI, presumably, watch the stream tomorrow night. Yeah, if you want to find out who that's going to be. UCI or UHSP. I'm very scared to be going up against the Phoenix. I'm going to be completely honest. So I think that has potential to be a great series.
They look much better than kind of when Snow 2 first joined the roster. I guess obviously, right? But even in Snow 2's first week, they took a game off of St. Clair. So the highs of this UTM Phoenix team is definitely there. When Munchie is able to get the playmakers and the assassins that he wants.
Dude, Munchie versus
the bottom
Rose Thorn,
lane specifically.
Please.
when the bottom lane specifically looks good for UTM, I think that's when they really shine. And Aito had a great series against Cal, and even taking a game off of Maryville, who, to be fair, were for funning it a little bit, but they've righted the ship after that loss. UCI is a rematch for them, though, from Playfly, and UCI actually beat them 2-1 in the regular season. So we'll see how hard the Phoenix has scaled, as I actually think both UCI and Northwood in their series had really good looks as well, and could both go on pretty deep runs through the upper or the lower bracket.
We had a conversation about this on the last CLOL episode, this match, and we were like, I hope a team doesn't look fraudulent from this. And I'm really happy that I think both UCI and Northwood,
They both look good.
Yeah, they both look good, and everyone can be like, okay, these teams are top 8 caliber teams. So I think UCI, again, assuming they beat UHSP, definitely not a gimme though. Should be able to overcome UTM, but this team's scary. So a lot of great stories so far in the first week of CLOL though, and Grapes, I suppose we're not going on to talking about week 2 yet, because let's talk about the format a little bit.
Yeah, let's take a quick pit stop, as again, this is the first year in CLOL history where we've had a full modified double elimination bracket for round of 32 all the way up to the grand finals. Of course, last year we had a switch to double elim after we got to top 8, which was definitely very fun, but I think some aspect that might be missed from having these double elimination matchups is the Cinderella story. You're never going to get like the Loyola Chicago guys winning multiple games in a row against top teams. There's always the lower bracket to fall for, and specifically for upsets, maybe it doesn't prove as high value. So I guess the question is, in a collegiate league, do you value the competitive integrity and the aspect of competition that the lower bracket provides, or do you value the magic of what a single elim do-or-die matchup every single round can do?
I absolutely value the double elim and what this is bringing to the table from a viewer perspective. Partially because I'm not sure I entirely subscribe to the idea that double elim limits Cinderella stories. Like, yes, it's more series that you have to win if you're an underdog, but it's against more manageable competition, right? Let's take Minnesota from this year, for example. Grapes, correct me if I'm wrong. I think this might be the lowest seeded team to ever make top 16 at the CLOL Championship. I would completely need to be fact checked on that.
I have no idea. Yeah.
25 seed. Minnesota, we're talking about them being heavy underdogs going up against Winthrop in top 16 this week. In years past, every single other CLOL past, Minnesota would have had to play a team the caliber of Winthrop in round 1 of the tournament.
UCI
so
in their matchup.
Yeah, so they probably just lose their first game, and that doesn't happen. So I actually think that the lower bracket enhances the quality of Cinderella runs because it enables some of those early week narratives. Yeah, I mean, Minnesota, they're probably just going to be a top 16 team and bow out, but that's still better than most of what we've been getting. I mean, I look back on some of the greatest Cinderella runs we've had in the past with CLOL, like say Northwood from last year. We call that like a crazy Cinderella run of top 4. Guys, they were still a 2 seed, right? Like, they were expected to probably make top 8 or at least be competitive for it. Obviously, top 4 was a huge surprise, and that was really cool. But even that story came from the fact that they had those lower bracket matches to play through. It wasn't just like a one win or something like that. So, yeah, I don't think I entirely subscribe to the idea that lower bracket limits Cinderella stories. And most importantly, it's just giving us incredibly competitive matches across the board. I actually feel like it makes the Minnesotas, the Carltons, the Nova Nighthawks, the San Jose States of the world worth watching their games because you can get really excited about their matches. And even though SJSU is now bowed out of the tournament, they took a game off of Weber State. They had a banger against OSU. And it also, I think, in turn enhances now Weber State's run forward, right? And what can Weber do? And it kind of, I think it just builds the narratives for everyone as the tournament progresses.
I 100% agree. I think also there's a difference between the single elim nature of March Madness versus CLOL, where the top teams are way more dominant, I feel like, or like the chance of them like dropping out early, I feel like is much less likely. Especially because now
March Madness is best of 1. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Things are best of 5, even more consistency probably for our top teams. And so I agree with you that it makes the lower bracket matchups a lot more fun to watch. For example, we got Carleton versus Minnesota in the first round of that lower bracket, which is not something we would have gotten otherwise. If it just was a single England bracket, they would have played against UCI, and Northwood respectively, and that probably would have just been it for them. Obviously, like the possibilities of upsets are still there, but I think these mini seeding upsets leading into potentially bigger seeding upsets can definitely help that out. And yeah, it just makes every game more interesting to watch. The first round of CLOL in years past has always been a lot of stomps and a couple of close games in the middle, where now it felt like most of our games were at least decently competitive. Obviously, there were a couple
We had
on
a
the
lot of
extremes,
3-0s,
but
but
even our 1 versus 16 matchup, which was UTM against Maryville, didn't go just a clean sweep. It was a 3-1 in favor of MU as UTM was able to get one. So yeah, I think that rewarding the teams kind of towards the middle of the pack and giving them more interesting, more fair play and competition is a really cool change to this format.
yeah, I mean, just 100% agree, man. Like, it's so fun to be able to watch these teams. I think, before there were about like 12 teams every year that were like, they're really happy to be here, which, like, I mean, like, you should be, right? Like, hey, making the tournament's huge, but like, I think those like happy to be here teams have an avenue of like something to play for, because now every win you can feel yourself moving up the standings, even if it's lower, right? Like, hey, we made it to top 24. Minnesota, we made it to top 16. They now have a chance to do the unfucking thinkable against Winthrop, which would, I mean, that would be bananas. If Minnesota beats Winthrop, dude, like, it's gonna be just pandemonium in the bracket. And like that to me is exciting because before, Winthrop versus Minnesota would have been a round 1 matchup that we wouldn't stream because, like, who cares, So yeah.
Yeah, the story that leads into it makes it super exciting. So speaking of those next week matchups, let's move on to our final headline for the day, which is going to talk about the first day or the first half of the games that'll be taking place in week number 2. These are going to be staggered a little bit more throughout the earlier portions of the week, just because the NACL is going to cause some teams to end up rescheduling here, Hawk. But let's include UCI UHSP in this too, because this will be an upcoming matchup when this episode comes out. Out of these, like, I guess 9 or 8 or however you want to place it, prospective games, let's choose one series that we think is going to go 3-0. One series that we think is going to go 3-1, and one series we think is going to go the full 5 games here in our first round of week 2.
Yeah, so I'm going to just say real quick, I think we've hit the point in the tournament where from here on out, every match is good. Like, I don't think there's literally any bad matches this coming week, at least in terms of narratives, right? Like, I'm probably assuming Grandview's going to move on. Like, that against Weber State should be hype. All good matches. Let's see. 3-0. Fuck, this is hard. I don't want to take Winthrop UMN. I'll give Minnesota a game. That's gonna be my 3-1. I'll give Minnesota a game. I think they got the sauce. And then Porty pulling one over Only 35 Mobility. Only 35 has been having some volatile laning phases. Like, sometimes Mobility gets like 3 kills because Only 35 pops off, and other times, man, that guy fucking runs it down. And it happens. I think my 3-0 is going to be UST Western. I think this Western team is better than like they get credit for. I just think St. Thomas like probably handles them though. And to me, Winthrop struggling against Western. Western played very well, but also it felt like a series as I was watching it that like Winthrop should be better. So I'll give that one the 3-0 because I don't want to take the cop out Maryville Northwood. And then 3-2. I'm going to give it to Ole Miss ISU. I think that series is going to be disgusting in the best way possible.
That's definitely the match of the day. Ole Miss versus Illinois State. Those are two teams that have their peaks of being top 3 programs in CLOL according to our national polls. That are, I think, on the up and up right now. Ole Miss looked good in their games against Fisher, and then looked great against their opponents in Weber State a little bit last week. Versus ISU, who also have continued to be on an upward trajectory themselves. So to pick a different series that would go 5 games, I would love to do the UCI UTM one, but I'm not going to pick that because obviously we don't know who necessarily has advanced out of that matchup just yet.
Oh,
I don't want
come
to jinx
on.
anything. I don't want to jinx anything
All right.
for either of these teams. I'll go. I will go Purdue Northwest SCAD as my 5-game series. Both of these teams, kind of in a poor way, struggled in their upper round matchups, where Purdue Northwest kind of got
They both got shellacked.
rocked by St. Clair.
St. Clair with miracle AD carry.
Yeah, and then SCAD losing to Fisher was definitely not the position that they probably would have wanted themselves to be in. So they're now down here in the lower bracket. And I think both these teams have some ups, have some downs. But the big matchup I want to talk about here between these two teams is the top laners. We get Izo up against Prank, two CLOL legends going at it. And I think that should be a really fun watch.
Prank with the Scion backdoor against CSUN to prevent Game 5.
You know, SCAD.
that game.
You know,
was
Izo played
crazy.
3 games of Singed against OC.
I did not actually. I did not watch that series. What the
It
fuck?
was crazy.
I got a little worried
Izo's
for SCAD when I saw OC took a game too, but
Izo's champ was cooking a little bit up
Dude,
there in the top lane.
well, I
Nivea, now the
fucking
Singed.
like had like an out of body experience when Seanatonin reminded me that Izo got a pentakill in CLOL last year against Converse.
Yeah.
Wait,
man.
I wanna repeat this because Sean said something along the lines of like, if I had a nickel for every time Converse in the second round of CLOL like had a series where they took a game but ultimately lost and the enemy top laner got a pentakill, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, and that was so funny.
So yeah, Purdue Northwest SCAD is going to be my 5-game series. Hopefully they both have their full rosters for that one. My 4-game series is going to be Fisher St. Clair. I think that Fisher are going to win this one, especially because of the roster change with Lig not being around. I think that could have been the area of the map that St. Clair tried to
I don't know,
abuse.
bro. Miracle was kind of
Yeah, I know.
him and
but
Alonso
also
were
Rob-
kind of
Robert had
going
a great-
crazy.
Robert had a great series as well against SCAD. Mixture and Skipshire did not look good against
Yeah.
them. So that's my win for Fisher. And then my 3-0, I guess I got to cop out. I got to go Winthrop versus Minnesota. I love the run, but I'm going to turn it into a positive. I'm going to twist it in a positive way. I'm going to twist it in a positive way. We thought that USF might have had a chance against Winthrop after their struggles, and Winthrop just completely shut the door on them. That looked like the series that they should have played against a team like Western, so they did it against USF, which is maybe an arguably weaker team, but I have a good feeling about Winthrop going on a crazy lower bracket run, and I would subscribe to that model if it ends up becoming the case.
Man, okay,
It'd have to be 7
it's
best of 5s in a
acceptable.
row to make it to Raleigh now for Winthrop. So
It's acceptable. I get it. Well, I mean,
that's
Winthrop.
that's my twist on it here.
No, I mean,
They're gonna find some magic.
Objectively,
magic.
Winthrop 3-0 is the correct prediction for that series. I'd
I'm really
be,
excited.
I'd be here for the Throppers lower bracket run. Wouldn't mind getting to run into them in Raleigh, perhaps.
I'd
But
be thrilled for a UTM UCI rematch though. But I'm knocking on wood for both teams. I don't want to jinx anything for anybody. As that game will again be on twitch.tv/Salty Runback NA, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific.
yeah, that's gonna do it for our headlines. Grapes, I think really briefly, you and I made some brackets. I just kind of want to temp check the room. How are we?
Okay.
How are we? How are we feeling?
I'm feeling okay. Shout out to Colomer, who currently is in the lead. 30 points out of, we awarded double points for getting the series score correct. So there's some, differences there. But, shout out to Colomer. He's currently in the lead, as we speak on things. And I'm comfortably in 8th place with 24 points. So I'm 6 points behind the lead. And Hawk, you're trailing towards the bottom here. You got 20.
I'm in second to last. Yeah, it's really bad. And it's gonna get worse because predicting Grandview to beat ISU has like destroyed like my entire or like half my lower bracket already. Yeah, I think my bracket's busted, chat, but it's fine. That's what we get for. See, here's the thing: is I help make the bracket, so I can't just predict based on like who I think is actually going to win every time, because then it's just gonna be so chalky. So I try to cook, and this is what I get.
Yeah.
I try to like be like I'm just gonna like stand Grandview for 0, and now I've paid the price. But also, I think I motivated ISU. TJ called me their biggest hater, which feels like a stretch. I don't really feel like I hated on ISU at any point, but I'm happy that I see you like. I mean, they were 0 for against top 10, and I blame them for that. But like, I think ISU's a good team. I think it's funny. Like, I'm happy that maybe I motivated the boys over there in where the fuck is in Bloomington? Is that where they are?
Bloomington, I think.
Yeah. Because I do want to see them do well, but man, this has not paid me dividends on my bracket.
It is not, but the bracket will continue as we have more CLOL obviously still left to go. Also, check out the NACL, which will start tomorrow at twitch.tv/NACL. As always, follow us on all of our socials, and we're going to get out of here because we got some CLOL series to produce, Hawk. So
yeah,
why don't you send us on out of here?
Yeah, check us out on all of our socials at Salty Runback NA, as well as our Patreon. Please support us. It means the world and helps us do everything that we're doing and really enjoy doing it. Also, the Discord. Guys, I'm telling you, like, this is the home of CLOL for all the fans out there. It's where you'll want to be. Check out the link in the description, and make sure to follow us at Hawkcasts at Speedy Grapes. But if you think that Minnesota has the sauce, take what Grape said with a grain of salt. I've been Hawk. That's been Grapes.
You believe it too.
Have a good night.